Let's get everybody rolling in here. I'll open already. It's just getting everybody in here. Everybody rolling. Y'all can hear me? Let's make sure y'all can hear me. I can hear it gone. Let's get everybody rolling in here. How y'all doing? How y'all doing?
Doing Tawad.
Be sharing with you a lot of information. Alaya, I'm glad you're here. Be sharing with you a lot of information that I've been recently going over for the past couple of days, weeks, month on end, really the whole year and years. And a lot of what I'm bringing out or about to bring out is basically a compilation of the previous classes I made, the school's university classes, and the rest of the teachers' classes all in one. And it's also going to be showing or giving you foresight into the next class I'm going to create, because I already have it in a PDF format, and I'm going to PowerPoint present it so you understand where I was going here and in the near future. So there's a lot of noise in the financial world as far as you've seen the Silicon Valley situation. You heard about the Silicon Valley situation. And predominantly it's getting a lot of light and a lot of public, well, not public, but media coverage, because of they're trying to shift the news outlets away from what's going on with Russia and Ukraine. Pretty much Russia is dominating Ukraine as far as war efforts. And the money that's being funded over there isn't being put to actual use. So we keep funding and putting financial transfusions into countries that aren't necessarily utilizing the money that we're giving to them. And this is thinking carnally minded, because we know that we're spiritually minded in obtaining salvation and going about the right ways of trying to achieve our salvation through following the law, statutes, and commandments. But to give a test and to speak to the current events going on, we fund countries that don't pay or cover our debts, and that falls back onto us to recoup and pay back the debts that we keep loaning out to other countries. Did that make sense?
Yes, but no.
What part didn't make sense?
No, like I get what you're saying, but it's
okay. So in forms of alliance, what America likes to do is, and you guys should see the references of where I'm going, right? In terms of alliances, what America likes to do is fund their allies by financial stability. And when you create a system of a currency out of nothing, the debt falls on you because what you're giving out has to be replenished in some way, shape, or form by the people who live in your living quarters. So, Alaya, that article you sent, and Tazoya, I don't know if you're also here, you guys sent let me pull it up real quick. Pulling up this article Alaya and Tazoya briefly discussed. So Tazoya put up an article and Alaya received a brief explanation about what's going on in the world concerning the bank runs. Bank runs haven't been done since the early mid 1900s, because having that much cash on file or having that much cash inside of a bank, what leads to higher rates of robberies and crime. So what they did was they turned the paper-like currency into fiat and digitized it to where the amount of what you have as far as spending power is by digitalization, right? So remember when I taught the portfolio diversity class and I told y'all what FDIC insured means? In the chat, do y'all remember when I taught the portfolio diversity class and I was going over what FDIC insured means? If y'all don't know or remember, it's okay. So for all of us and all of you who have bank accounts, certain banks, predominantly all of them, are FDIC insured. And FDIC insured is basically a stamp of approval by the banking cartel, aka the Federal Reserve System, that approves you to be insured for your money of under $250,000. It's no different from when many of us have car insurance, Liberty Mutual, full coverage, basic coverage, so on and so forth. When you have different coverages to each product that you may have, to where you're funded and backed, but you have to put down a down payment. It's no different from having a bank account, right? So now there's an uproar, and yes, there's limits. Big thing is that there's limits. So now there's an uproar because according to the article Tazoya had sent, the brother Tazoya had sent, it says 85% of Silicon Valley's bank deposits were not insured. A question to the chat and to anybody in here. What is Silicon Valley predominantly made up of? Chat, what is Silicon Valley predominantly known for and made up of? As far as companies. A lot of large companies came out. Yep. A lot of those startup tech companies predominantly had 250,000 and above insured inside of those banks, right? So now, majority of them lost their liquidity. You guys know what liquidity is? Yep. Y'all know how liquidity is, or y'all know what liquidity is? It's how smooth your money maneuvers through the markets. So whether it be your bank accounts, whether you withdraw, deposit, whether you transfer into another account, how fast it may take. So now, I want y'all to follow me. 85% of those companies have lost their money. They have lost their money, right? Is it a coincidence that America was just talking about a debt ceiling and reaching its debt ceiling? If America reaches its debt ceiling, let me break down the debt ceiling for those who don't know what a debt ceiling is. A debt ceiling is basically the amount of debt we could accumulate up until the point of where we default. And defaulting, for those who don't know what defaulting is what, Sean?
It's a bankruptcy.
It's bankruptcy. So in bankruptcies and in defaulting, what that leads into is legalities and problems with the government because you can't pay back what you or what you applied for as far as a loan. So now these individuals cannot pay back or fund or finance their employers or anything else that they was doing as far as developmental factions for service goods or anything that they was invested in because they lost their money through the Silicon Valley. They lost their money through these financial institutions because they weren't FDIC insured. So you know what that does? Because they lost their money and the debt ceiling almost reached its peak, they said that taxpayers won't have to worry about it. Let me explain to y'all something. Y'all remember this book I mentioned? Is anybody familiar with this book I mentioned? It's about 600 pages. And in this book, it speaks about how the government and the Federal Reserve goes about maneuvering money and and how they recoup money. And in times like this, when inflation is at an all-time high, they know how to penny pinch and squeeze the people's pockets, predominantly blacks and Hispanics and Native American Indians. So now, in conversation with debt ceilings, y'all saw facts. So in conversation with debt ceilings, what they're trying to do is ultimately get rid of healthcare. To the chat and to the people in the room, how much percentage does healthcare take up of the debt? Does anybody know in the chat how much does the debt take up with healthcare? How much, bro? This says the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau estimates that $88 billion in medical debt is reflected on Americans' credit reports. In other words, it's about 33% of our $1 trillion debt. How much of us have health care? How much of us utilize health care? I have so much to share with y'all. How much of us utilize health care? We have health care to avoid paying taxes. Let's be honest. We don't regularly go to the doctors. Majority of us, so to speak.
Just recently, honestly. Then when you go, you got copay. Some shit they don't cover. So.
Copay, some things they don't cover. Because when you apply for healthcare, right? And this is all going into the lesson. When you apply for healthcare, you're not aware of the terms and conditions and what you have to pay, what you got, because you don't look at the plan packages. Because people just assume, I'm gonna get this, it's basic, it's affordable. And some copays or even some initial walk-ins, the down payment is at least, I'll speak for myself. To walk into a hospital right now to receive urgent care or primary care into a hospital, I would have to pay out of pocket at least $3,000. If I was to pay healthcare this year, it would cost me $3,600 for the year. And if I don't have healthcare for the year, I owe the IRS $1,500.
Some people get the reduced one so they don't get it taken up.
The reduced, it depends on the income. Yeah. So the reduced healthcare, the cheapest I've seen was $290 by Fallon Health per month.
I got a government job and they charge $4,800 for the year. For the year. But the copay is 20%. No, just kidding. Oh, I got like when Shia was saying I'll have to pay $75 and then every other visit is $20.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you utilize it? Not like that. So you don't necessarily need it unless you're getting blood work done, right? So the point of why I mentioned all three of those things is because there's a large conversation of the Silicon Valley situation. And I kind of spoke to it before it happened so that y'all could be aware of they do this all the time. I'm going to read the excerpt from this book to show y'all. So this book is called The Creature from Jekyll's Island again. This particular chapter, the irony of what's going on today, right? This particular chapter is called The Name of the Game is Bailout. Family, before I get into this excerpt, a brief intermission and importance to, as we're students of history, let's also be players of the present. We're solidified in our history in knowing who we are as a people, what we are to practice, and how to overcome it, which is also going to be talked about tonight as well. But it's important that you're a present player in this particular game because he taught you how to maneuver around this wickedness that's going on about you, especially in a financial institution world. The problem is we're too emotionally attached to financial instability. So when we're willing or we have a problem with sacrificing because we don't study things like these and to go about or go around tax breaks, so on and so forth. If we're to be builders and understanding how to build up houses, to plant vineyards, so on and so forth, in this present time period, it must be at least put into practice to learn how to maneuver it in this captivity. So when you're free on the other side, it's like clockwork, it's cake. So now I'm going to read this excerpt. And the book is called The Creature from Jekyll's Island by G. Edward Griffin. And it's a second look at the Federal Reserve, right? And if anybody will upload the PowerPoint later on, I have the brother Apayak upload the PowerPoint later on. And this is page 25, right? And I'm just going to read the header, well, the italics. It says, the analogy of a spectator sporting event as a means of explaining the rules by which taxpayers are required to pick up the cost of bailing out the banks when their loans go sour. Banks have and aren't required to report cash notes because they each have a book that logs in when people put in money, when people take out money, so on and so forth. They're not required by law to publicly disclose that. How much of y'all watch Snowfall? Y'all watch Snowfall or any mafia old movies, so on and so forth, where they got offshore accounts and so on and so forth? Everything is in y'all plain sight. Y'all just don't pay attention to it. This is what this is. So let me read. I'm going to read every highlighted piece I have, right? And I'm going to jump a few pages. So now, the rules of the game. This is page 26. The game begins when the Federal Reserve System, I want to also be clear. The Federal Reserve and the government are two different entities. The Federal Reserve owns this country. It was created and fashioned after Great Britain. And to recall the portfolio diversity class, its greatest enemy was who? The Federal Reserve's and Great Britain's greatest enemy was who?
Germany with the Jews.
You. When they got you out of the physical chains, because you was their first, other than the coin version of currency, you was their greatest form of currency. You were called black gold. You were their greatest form of currency. And when that dwindled away, they had to resort to another option by giving you promissory notes, aka dollar bills. So what they've done in efforts to destroy you was they funded wars against you from Great Britain. This is all in this book, by the way. That's why you have the Haitian independence. That's why you have Toussaint Louverture, Simón Bolívar, Pedro Manuel Scapas. You have Albizu Campos. These four I call them the four horsemen because they're the greatest of the 18th and 1900th century concerning our people. They have liberated our people for a time period, and Esau has been fighting against them by financially backing and physically backing their allies. So they've been doing this for a long time. But you were the greatest form of currency. And when they were stripped from that, in this present day and current age, they've gotten to the point of where they're trying to kill you in many other ways.
It was the same thing Gaddafi was trying to do.
What do you mean?
He was trying to set up the liberating Liberian thing.
Yes, and all that, and that's what we're about to get into tonight, with just one chapter, right? So now, yes, the brother Joshua said the Federal Reserve is pretty much the world. He's absolutely correct. Remember, they're two different entities, and they owned pretty much everything. But now they're undergoing another name. See, Esau, after he stole your identity, he multiplied it. Y'all want some examples? How many Jews are there? What types of Jewish people exist? Hasidic, Sephardic, Orthodox. Took your religion, not your religion, took your identity, multiplied it, confused everybody. With the banking system and how you created, we had staffs. We had ways of going about our banking, many ways, except we called it staffings. We had staffs, we had 10% tithing, all of that. They robbed everything. If you look at Chaldean language, don't it look just like Paleo? Have y'all seen Chaldean language? Yep. They hate you so much, they duplicated your lifestyle while you was under captivity and hit it right underneath your nose. And put it inside TV shows that the common folk watch today. Snowfall is a perfect example. Offshore accounts. How is it that he could take $70 million at the instant and not allow it to be traceable? If you watch TV shows like Law and Order in 2013, 2014, 2015, they was talking about Bitcoin back then. The Simpsons is known for predominantly bringing about things before they actually happen. So they always show what's to come before it actually happens. And then a video of what happened, a video of them showing what happened before, all of a sudden rises to, oh, that happened in The Simpsons years ago. So now I'm going to read the name of the game is bailout, right? When such a loan is placed, this is page 26 from the Creatures from Jekyll Island. When such a loan is placed on a bank's books, it is shown as an asset because it is earning interest and presumably someday will be paid back. So when y'all put money inside your bank accounts, they tell y'all the federal is, but it's also its own separate entity. So the federal, y'all bank accounts, some depending on each, I broke down to y'all what APR and APY is. Each one of y'all savings accounts should accumulate 0.001 or 0.01% interest in y'all holdings account. That's what they tell y'all, right? Which means you're supposed to gain money as it sits in there. There's a valuable, and the reason why I'm bringing all this out is because the scriptures tell you money is a defense. When you put money and let it sit, it loses its value over time in buying power. $100 today is now worth, I think, $52 now. Your 401ks, if any of you have 401ks or IRAs, are now slashed in half. I'll give y'all an example. Just for shits and giggles, excuse my French, I put $20 into an IRA account. You know how much it's worth? I put $20 into an IRA account. Guess how much it is? Guess how much it's worth?
15.
Huh?
$2.
Nope.
15.
You got me lower, right?
20 cents.
Which one?
It's a demo account. It's not an actual IRA. But to show you the devaluation of the dollar and how everybody's moving from it. Biden is, in this particular time period, ensuring people that the banking system's okay. No, it's not. It's been falling for a very long time. eggs have soared to at least 70% now. At least 70%. So the fraction of the dollar itself is crumbling. And that's why you have many other nations moving towards BRICS, because they're creating their own currency. And instead of moving towards paper or fiat currency, America is trying to digitize the whole world as far as currency goes, because it's easy to manipulate numbers and find and get rid of all traceable accounts by putting them through ghost wiring and so on and so forth. So the larger the loan, the better it is, because it will produce the greatest amount of profit with the least amount of effort. So now you have the debt play, the perpetual debt play, the debt rollover play, the up the ante play. You have many plays that go into defaulting loans if there was ever to default. So what big companies do predominantly is they put millions to hundreds of thousands of dollars inside of a bank. And because it's not insured, it goes in the wind. And that's what's happening in this current time. So it goes in the wind, and they're making an uproar about it. And they're telling people that taxpayers don't have to worry about it. Which means one or two things. That money is being used to pay against the debt that we owe, the debt that we could almost default against, which will ultimately resort to us paying for it, or they'll receive it back, and the smaller bank in Silicon Valley will be bought by a larger bank, and it will rebrand itself under a new name, and it will receive a higher credit limit as far as insurance goes. So y'all understand. So bank runs haven't been existent since about 1950s to the early 1900s. For the sake of having cash on hand, banks would predominantly have at least 10,000, 20,000. That's the most. But if you look at all news articles right now, a lot of news articles will show people standing outside of Silicon Valley wanting their money, trying to withdraw their money. And the money that they were supposed to be receiving or getting back, that they're trying to withdraw, they're still to be available by Monday. Why isn't it available now? Where is it? Because they don't have, which means they have to print it. When you print money, that means the debt rises and rises and rises and rises. And guess who has to pay that? We do. So I'm gonna read what the FDIC encloses book. The FDIC has three options when bailing out an insolvent bank, which would be the Silicon Valley. This is page 49. It's called Protectors of the Public from the Creature of Jekyll Island, right? The first is called payoff. It involves simply paying off the insured depositors and then letting the bank fall to the mercy of the liquidators. Who are the liquidators in this particular situation after I explained everything? The Federal Reserve. This is the option usually chosen for small banks with no political clout. The second possibility is called a sell-off, and it involves making arrangements for a larger bank to assume all the real assets and liabilities of the failing bank. Remember, with funding banks and putting money inside of banks, it has assets. If you guys didn't know, assets could consist of, by financial currency, of course, assets could consist of ETFs, which is trading funds and investments that involve their whole net worth as a whole. You could put that inside of a bank and have it sit in an account, and protected account, and it gains over time according to the stock market concerning each and every investment. Bonds. So now, banking services are uninterrupted aside from a change in name. Because remember, they have to rebrand and change under a different name now. Most customers are unaware of this transaction. Remember, I just said that their money should be available, I believe, either this Monday, today, or next Monday, because they don't have it in hand right now. Which means they would have to get liquidations from another company. So either they have to speak or beg the Federal Reserve to buy their depreciated bonds over time so that they can recoup the money that they lost, or have the Federal Reserve buy them out so that they can be rebranded to give the taxpayers back their money.
So the same thing that happened with TD Bank North?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bank of America just had a, what did they just have?
They was robbing people.
They were just robbing people. They was taking $1,400 and all that. Remember, they was finding people with accounts like $1,000 missing,
Like 3 weeks ago.
and then gave it back. See how easy it is to make money and give it right back to you? Oh, no. Because they're paying off the debt. They're paying off what they owe. And of course, if in case you need to withdraw, it's easier for numbers to be dismissed if you're not using currency notes, because it's digitized. So you don't actually hold any value. You don't hold any value. Think about it. If I don't have no bills on me right now, but if you don't have physical paper, what you see on your phone could actually be false.
Right.
The times that it's processing is because it's not existent. It's not existent.
That shit is crazy.
Yo,
What do you think processing means?
or pending?
Yeah.
Processing or pending. That's why sometimes when you pay bills, you calculate, all right, I pay this much, I should have this much left. And then your account negative, or your account a little bit more than, I thought I had this at, it didn't finish processing. Or go through completely. That number's not real. It's digitized in the form of real, obviously, but it pays bills and everything. Now, of course, it has its effects of paying bills and everything else, but at any time, if you are to pull out that amount of money, a bank teller will have a red button right underneath the counter. Why are you pulling out this much money? It'll raise an alarm to the bank tellers. You'll probably have black suits knocked. Hey, what's going on? You all right? You pulling out that much money? There's individuals who have been harassed for the past couple of years for pulling out that amount of money. You could Google that right now.
Somebody just got arrested for pulling out their own money.
Exactly. You cannot pull out that amount of money.
Didn't you say printed money gives us more debt?
Absolutely. So now they're creating a loan facility.
But the dollar says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private.
This dollar, Brock just pulled out $1, y'all.
Yo, that's wow.
So this dollar says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's new. It looked new. That dollar is worth 54 cents, 52 cents right now. And if you don't have that in hand, then anything that is digitized on your screen is what you currently have. Yet and still, as far as processing goes, you can't have that. And if you have that amount of cash, it's alarming to bankers and everything else. Trust me when I tell you. So, the third option is called bailout, and this is the one which deserves our special attention. In a bailout, the bank does not close, so Silicon Valley is not going to close. And everyone is insured or not is fully protected. Such privileged treatment is accorded by FDIC only rare to elect few. When y'all watch commercials about banking, Wells Fargo, you know how y'all do those commercials and all that good stuff? What they say at the end of each commercial? FDIC insured.
Yeah.
So in particular situations happen like this, that's where that lady's voice comes in. However, they don't have that cash on hand. So the bank runs they have to make is because of the lack of liquidity that they don't have on hand in each bank. So
The thing is, how can you insure money with more money? Like, where's the other money?
that's like asking how you create more money out of nothing. The whole point of fiat and how it was created was out of nothing. What banks originated and started when they started duplicating notes, promissory notes. That treasury note that he just showed, they started duplicating them and making receipts look just like that dollar bill. So you couldn't tell the difference. Switch the numbers up a little bit on the numbers, so on and so forth. Make it look real enough. That's on the next person that believes it's real.
You ain't gonna pay attention to it either.
Why do you think they show $100 bill, $50 bill, like hold it in the air, they start and all that? Because some of them are fake. So you have that game and what they're doing in Silicon Valley. Now, and this is just going into what I'm opening up with, because as you can see, this economy, this nation is plummeting, right? So start Isaiah 47.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 1.
So we know in history who Babylon was, is, and how it's going to be destroyed in there, correct? Go ahead.
Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground, there is no throne.
Why is Babylon being referred to as a virgin?
Innocence, untouched, claim of
You
innocence.
said innocence?
Claim of innocence.
Claim of innocence? That's better. Why is Babylon being referred to as a virgin?
Nothing has took them over yet.
He's untouched. He felt that defilement, that real defilement.
Gone. Go ahead, bro.
O virgin daughter of Babylon, sit on the ground, there is no throne. O daughter of the Chaldeans.
Oh, who?
O daughter of the Chaldeans.
You see how this country, because we know and understand that Babylon is this country, soon to be destroyed. You see how it's also being referenced to Chaldea. And I'm making that reference point because the Chaldeans imitated what during the time of our captivity, or even in our culture and heritage? What did they imitate? That I pointed out last class, and I mentioned earlier. The Hebrew language. The Hebrew language. The Chaldean language looks just like Paleo. Go ahead, bro.
O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstones and grind meal. Uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man.
Now, this has happened multiple times in history to where the Lord destroyed this particular people. And as we read, you're going to get the references in your head to see and have the picture painted clearly on what the Lord is speaking towards and talking about. The original reference of this, I'm going to see if y'all know it. Go ahead.
As for our Redeemer, the Lord of hosts is his name, the Holy One of Israel.
Right. Go ahead.
Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms.
Stop. Revelation chapter 17, verse 18.
Revelation chapter 17 and verse 18. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
So there would be a time period where she would be no more called in her stature, because she would be in the dust, uncovered, destroyed, which is repetitive to what nations and kingdoms on the planet that you remember in history that we've already discussed. Chat, y'all can answer.
What was the question again?
Huh?
That
What nation of people followed the same like manner and got destroyed?
Tyree Sidon.
Remember, say it louder.
Tyree Sidon.
Tyre and Sidon. Remember, follow the nature of the Esau. We're discussing Esau's pilgrimage and lineage, right? Read that from the top, Rock.
And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth.
Right. So now we're speaking towards her destruction and what's going on in this very age, right? Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 6. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand.
Stop. What is this referencing? Isaiah 47 verse 6. What is this referencing?
Slavery.
There's a time period where this happened. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. What is this talking about? Remember, the context is the Chaldeans.
Is this Deuteronomy?
Hmm?
Is this Deuteronomy? Is that in reference to Deuteronomy 28?
Uh-oh.
I remember the Ezekiel classes.
Babylonian captivity.
My heart, give me the precept for it. Does anybody know this reference? Remember, following the precept y'all want to this in reference to this particular time period. Rocky, you got it? Go ahead.
This is 2 Kings chapter 25 and verse 8. And in the 5th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, King Nebuzaradan, captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon unto Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of the Lord and the king's house and all the houses of Jerusalem.
This is what you need as a reference to this particular part of the passage to follow the storyline. Also, there's another one. It's in the Apocrypha. Does anybody know it? We don't need to validate the Apocrypha because it's part of the Bible, but this solidifies that the Apocrypha is canon. Does anybody know before I give the answer?
First Ezra.
First Ezra's what?
You can just start at 1.
No. No.
He's like, oh.
The Tazahar said first Ezra's, he's warm. First Ezra's what? First Ezra chapter 4, verse 45.
First Ezra chapter 4 and verse 45. Thou also hast vowed to build up the temple, which the Edomites,
The who?
the Edomites
Go ahead.
burned when Judea was made desolate by the Chaldees.
This is the second part of this that you need, according to this passage. Remember, they're being referenced as Chaldeans and also Babylonians. So before we pull it to this present time, understand the historical reference of where it came from, so you could pull it as well. It is your job to be a historian in the past, present, and what would be the predictable future as prophets of Christ. You understand me? Go ahead, go back to Isaiah.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 6. I was wroth with my people, I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke.
Stop. What is the precept to the latter end of that?
precept for the last question you gave me. That is something you want to.
Sorry. Remember, we're still, Rod. Remember, we're still in the sentiments of the two precepts we just pulled, right? So now, well, now that's a good one. I want you guys to also use this one as well. Psalms 137, verse 7. Because remember, in process of them destroying Jerusalem, these are the sentiments of how they feel. You gotta bring the setting and bring the whole sentiments of the precept together to paint the picture to the audience and hear it. Go ahead.
Psalm chapter 137 and verse 7. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof.
Remember, there was besieging Jerusalem. And we just finished reading what they did. Not to mention, after doing so, use the Lord's cups and what is inside his inner courts and temple to use and fill their ungodly things and service themselves with drinks, food, so on and so forth. So in their pride, they didn't show no favor to the old nor young. What's different then from today? Ain't no damn difference. Ain't none. Go back to Isaiah.
All right.
Go ahead.
This is Genesis chapter 27 and verse 39. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and thou shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Just going into how upon the ancient thou is very heavily laid thy yoke.
Come on. So now, also Obadiah 12. Let's get Obadiah 12.
This is Obadiah chapter 1, verse 12. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother, in the day that he became a stranger.
That he what?
That in the day that he became a stranger.
Who was the original stranger? No. Why is the Most High calling Israel stranger? Y'all reading this wrong.
Walked away from the laws.
Who else?
Got caught up in that.
Who else? All y'all right,
Because we can't-
but the point is, Israel was called the strangers.
We're not native to the land.
Go ahead, Rob.
Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction.
What happened at that particular time period? We just mentioned it. The besiegement of Jerusalem. Go ahead.
Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of their distress.
And that's what we shared the sentiments is concerning Psalms 137, verse 7. So now y'all get the whole precepted understanding of that one verse in Isaiah 47, right? Mayar,
Precept.
go ahead.
This is Lamentations, is written by Jeremiah. This is Lamentations chapter 2, verse 11. Mine eyes do fail with tears, my bowels are troubled, my liver is poured upon the earth. For the destruction of the daughter of my people, because the children in the suckling swooned in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, where is the corn and wine? When they swooned as the wounded in the streets of the city, when their souls were poured out into the mother's bosom. So this is and I'm gonna read verse 15 too. Verse 15. All that passed by clapped their hands at thee. They hissed and wagged their head at the daughter of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call perfection of beauty, the joy of the whole earth? So this is going into the destruction of Babylon, how Jeremiah was basically in a lament, and the children of Israel wasn't in a good state, basically.
Con. And we're about to read into that right after. Wow. Go back to Isaiah.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 7. And thou saidest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay.
Stop right there. What is after forever? Y'all see what's after forever? A colon. So now, what does a colon do in a sentence? Because if you read this through and through, you would think the audience is the same. Or you would think who Christ is speaking towards is the same people.
Stop and a pause.
Yeah, I was going to say, but it continues it in a list-like fashion or form to kind of separate the before part and then the after part of the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Clark.
So now, to this particular sentence, I don't know why you say YHWH? To this particular sentence, the precept to this is what? To Isaiah 47 verse 7. So that thou didst not lay the things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Anybody got the precept to Isaiah 47 verse 7?
I'll just read this. This is Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 15. Yet shalt thou be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof, and opened not the house of his prisoners?
Why I read it loud?
This is Revelation chapter 18, verse 7.
Barack was correct. Go ahead, Meyer.
How much she had glorified herself and lived deliciously.
Mm-hmm.
So much torment and sorrow give her, for she said in her heart, I sit a queen, and I am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly buried with fire.
Do you have time to look towards the end of a thing when you're enjoying the progress of it, of pleasure? Being a wicked nation? Well, I can't necessarily ask y'all that because we're striving for righteousness, right? But when, as a wicked nation, you don't necessarily see the end of a thing because you're enjoying the process of it all, destroying everybody else around you, right? So, give me one more precept to that. Isaiah 43, as a matter of fact, lock it. Isaiah 42, verse 24.
Isaiah chapter 42 and verse 24. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers.
Mm-hmm. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? Go ahead.
Did not the Lord, he against whom we have sinned, for they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law.
This is what that colon was speaking to originally. Because we didn't consider the end of our ways. Go ahead.
Verse 25, therefore he hath poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it hath set him on fire round about, yet he knew not, and it burned him, yet he laid it not to heart.
What is it speaking about? See if y'all pay attention. What is this scripture speaking towards? The chat can answer. What is this scripture? What is verse 25 of Isaiah 42 speaking towards?
It's not realizing why this is happening to them or why it's happening to us.
He's speaking towards the sentiment of the people. I'm asking you, what event was this? We mentioned it like 3 times biblically. If you've been following what I've been saying, we mentioned it like 3 times already. Barak pulled the precept, Ma'ar pulled the precept, I pulled the precept.
Not them caring about the young or the old.
Mm-hmm. It's an event. Let's read Isaiah 43 again. Therefore, the Most High, had poured upon him the fury of his anger and the strength of battle, and it had set him on fire round about, yet he knew not. And it burned him, yet he laid it not to his heart. Remember, it's talking about Jacob. What event happened?
When they invaded Jerusalem.
Say it loud.
When they invaded Jerusalem.
Say it louder.
When they invaded Jerusalem.
Remember when the Babylonians invaded Jerusalem? And Ezekiel tried to be the physical appearance of what was to come, divided his hair in half, had a clay tablet, enacted slavery, and nobody inquired of him or asked him what he was doing. Follow me. So now let's jump back. Let's go back to Isaiah.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 8.
Apayat, Tazalia, Khan, Kawan, Khan, burnt the house of Khan. Good. Go ahead.
Therefore, hear now this, that thou art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thine heart, I am, and none else beside it.
So now y'all see the shift in conversation back to the oppressor, right? Y'all understand that now? Could y'all see now the shift in conversation back to the oppressor? Come, go ahead.
I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children.
I got something to show y'all. Hold on. This is bold. Give me Amos 1:11 real quick. Abayak, I'm gonna start clipping you up. Let's get pissed. Abayak, here you go. This is the first one I'm gonna send you. Brock, read Amos 1:11 for me, please.
Amos chapter 1 and verse 11. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever.
Y'all ready for the destruction of this kingdom? It's at hand and it's happening now. Apayak, I sent you 2. The first one I want you to pull up just to show the bold-faced lie that this nation has, and yet statistics don't lie. Numbers don't. We're going to talk numbers for a second because they don't lie. They don't lie whatsoever. So there's 2 articles I sent him. You could zoom that in and blow that up for me, please. That is a 2020 case study of a chart of an opioid crisis. Now, I'm also going to be sending him links to other things, because when you study one area, it's like a small bubble. And in a small bubble, there's increments of leading to other things. And that's what knowledge in itself, right? So, can you blow that up and show me? So, that's 50 states and the locations of each. There you have white people, black people. I'll be like, you put that disclaimer up? Yeah, you did earlier. You have white people, black people, Hispanic people, and other nationalities. And from what I can see off of skimming the chart, it looks like white people are far ahead than blacks and Hispanics as far as opioid crisis. And they're finding that 40 to 50,000. Didn't we just read an article not too long ago that in Cali, like 40,000 people died of fentanyl? Something like that. One of the drugs. I'm also going to be discussing and talking about fentanyl. So, for a nation to be boldly proud and speak that she will sit as a widow and not know the loss of children, that statistic has to be explained. You're so proud that you're blind to see that you're actually losing children? Apea, could you please pull up the next thing that I sent you? What a blind nation. Which is why I spoke to, when you're so busy in pleasure, there's truly a forgetfulness of affliction. And affliction comes when you're reaping unfruitfully. You always pay for the things that you do. Adderall and Ozempic are in spotlight amid widespread drug shortages. So now these are over-the-counter products that are prescribed in Stop and Shops, Walgreens, CVS's, Big Y, for pharmaceutical and medicinal purposes to people's aid, right? And we don't got to read that particularly, but predominantly a lot of these big pharmaceutical companies are all funded with or hedge funded with one another. If you search each and every one of these smaller companies or small corporations that are drug incorporated, they are financially backed by a bigger pharmaceutical company, which means they're chain linked with one another. So now there's been studies to where they're finding dosages of fentanyl inside of some of these products. Do you guys know what fentanyl causes? Real quick, Google fentanyl. Just type fentanyl in the Google search bar.
That was funny. You just pulled that up to show that white people are dying statistically more from opioid overdoses and uses. And everything you search up, it says we're outnumbering them.
That's cap. Stop the cap. Stop the cap. Because statistics is showing otherwise. And it's at an all-time high. Except what they're doing now is they're fudging numbers and throwing them inside rehabilitation care, primary care, all that other nonsense. Right? But then fentanyl is let's read the definition. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. Pharmaceutical fentanyl was developed for pain management treatment of cancer patients, applied in a patch on the skin because of its powerful opioid properties. Fentanyl is also diverted for abuse. So now, which search engine is that up at? So I could that's Google. Let me see. That's Google, right? This is why Esau's a devil. My Google search engine says fentanyl, common brands, because it goes into this. Oh, there it is right there. Zoom in on the common brands part. Scroll up for me, good. Oh, there you go, right there. How many of you are familiar with those brands? Derogesic, Abstral, Subsidies, and Ionisys. Availability, prescription needed. Pregnancy, consult a doctor. Alcohol, avoid. Very serious interactions could occur. Drug class, opioid. Scroll up a little bit, sir. It can treat severe pain, controlled substance, high risk for addiction and dependence, can cause respiratory distress and death when taken in high doses or when combined with other substances, especially alcohol or other illicit drugs such as heroin or cocaine. So now, we just read brand names that carry fentanyl, right? That's on paper. How much of those drugs that are pharmaceutically distributed actually have fentanyl with them off paper? You know what that's equivalent to? For those who use pharmaceutical drugs like ibuprofen, Advil, so on and so forth. By the way, ibuprofen's. Anyways, for those who use pharmaceutical drugs, right? Did you know that that is almost equivalent to them using off-brand, over-the-counter products? Like, and I don't mean to do this, but iPhone and Android, however you feel about them, one brand and other people's opinion is better than the other, so on and so forth, right? They're starting through their drug shortages of distribution, stepping on what would be termed as or coined as stepping on the original brand and distributing it through off-brand products. Like if I get raw milk or I sell raw milk to Stop and Shop and it's a raw milk, the cheaper option, I'm going to go with the cheaper option because it's cheaper and I'm going to slap Stop and Shop brand on top of it. So they're distributing a lot of the Stop and Shop brand rather than the natural brand because they're having a shortage on the natural brand, which means there's going to be a heavier load in fentanyl and less of what the purpose of what the original brand is supposed to do. You understand what I'm saying? So raw milk, pasteurization. You're going to go with pasteurization because it's cheaper and it's more affordable. And we're losing the quantity amount of this. You understand?
Generic version.
Yes. So now, in the destruction of America and being proud, you can't be blind to see that you're actually losing children. And if I'm not mistaken, by 2050, the population of white males, what's the percentage they said? Should be at an all-time low. It's already at a low. A lot of them are freezing their eggs. A lot of them can't even produce children. And in our wickedness, we're catching up to those numbers by aborting our children. We are the leading abortionists by the millions. So, to speak to the loss of children, the destruction, read verse 9. Yes.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 9. But these two things shall come to thee in the moment in one day.
In a what?
In one day.
In a moment. Go ahead.
The loss of children and widowhood. It shall come upon thee in their perfection. For the multitude of thy sorceries.
What sorceries? Diluting product. Funding your people and our people. Trying to break us down faster than breaking your people down. They studied your genetic code from the T. Scientists, and predominantly scientists who study biochemical information, biotech, neuroscience, so on and so forth, their subjects weren't white people.
That's a fact.
They were black people. Their subjects were blacks and Hispanics. The experience that they do in Tuskegee and all of that, and what they did to us, their experiments in slavery, their experiments to the extent of what they did and when was to blacks and Hispanics. And I'm not going to say the explicit things that they did to us during those particular times, but they made sure to do extensive research on how our genetic makeup breaks, reconstructs us, so on and so forth, to where they try to target your very molecules. And we keep refining ourselves through captivity, and they're dying off because all of the curses that was put upon us as we rise up are now going back to them 10 times fold. So through the loss of children, through their sorceries, you know what else is sorcery? I want you to read this. I want to share this one too.
Does it speak more so in the terms of like manipulation?
Absolutely. Sorcery is a broad term for manipulation, forgery, a whole bunch. That's a broad term.
Deceit.
You probably think witchcraft is way more than that.
Right.
Next article I'm going to send to you, Akbayat. Please throw this up. To them. Sorcery is propaganda as well. What's terms of sorcery? This, the usage of this, how it has your attention. It's crafty devices that was made over time and time. iPhones, Androids, iPads, Macs, the usage of all of them. It's gotten to a point of where, let me read this out loud to y'all, because this isn't supposed to happen. Your children have dumbed down to the point of where this is now an article that needs to be brought to attention. Zoom in on that, please. Goofy Edomite. IQ scores in the U.S. have fallen for the first time in decades. So the first one. They do it by 15 to 20 years. That's why. IQ scores have decreased in the U.S. for the first time in decades, new research from scientists at Northwestern University and University of Oregon suggests. The study, which was published in the journal Intelligence this month, indicated that IQ levels had lowered, especially for those with less education in the 18 to 22 age group. The researchers set out to determine whether or not the Flynn effect, the steady increase in IQ scores across generations, had changed from 2006 to 2018 in the U.S. Younger generations are expected to have a higher IQ score than the previous age group. Since 1932, average IQ scores have increased 3 to 5 points prior to the decade. But now they've dropped. Because what do your children and what do children pay attention to now? And what are their times invested in? Screens. The scrying mirror. Media. TikTok. Applications that remove you from refining self and learning and applying things yourself. You know, I just want to be clear. This isn't going to be in existence in the kingdom. This isn't going to be in existence in the kingdom. This camera's not going to be in existence in the kingdom. Everybody will learn how to use their hands again. So for those and anybody who can hear, it has been slothful to learning how to use their hands to read, write, and follow the things that God told you to do, you're going to pay for that in the kingdom. And least in the kingdom isn't just being a doorman. If you don't apply the things that are been taught to you, that it will continually be taught to you, it will reflect in your personal life and in your works. What you use for usage in this could be invested somewhere else that could be beneficial to you and work towards your salvation. Not mindlessly scroll with no point of intent in establishing yourself. And I'm going to speak to the community of Israelites. We have this idea and construct of highlighting the precept in this and using this knowledge and information to our benefit of gainsaying individuals who already know that they're Israelites and continually going back and forth with individuals who know this knowledge and refuse to acknowledge it. At what point do you remove yourself from that atmosphere and be an aid to others around you? And what I mean by that is diversifying your talent and ability that God gave you, other than you discussing historical evidence that is already 100% fact, but working towards your weaknesses. You could sit here and talk about this as a strength all day. This stands alone. This don't need you. But to the things you don't want to do as far as your weaknesses, how much effort do you put in towards that? This don't need any one of us in here. We need this. And the employer requires of you, your employer, each and every one of our boss that laid down his life for you, requires that you get your act together. That you follow orders. That you follow the curriculum that was set before you. That you respect all ranks and manners of men before you, to the best of your ability. To lean and rely on one another in times of need. because that's what your salvation hangs upon. Bonds. The title of this class is loosely quoted, or the caption of this class is loosely quoted at Hebrews 10, verse 25. And the importance of that is, if you have been weary, if you have been slothful in doing good in Christ, he sees that. He knows when you need to step it up. He knows when you're not doing enough. And if there's men who are breathing down your neck, I'll pause if necessary, but who has their best and genuine interest to take care of you and rebuke you for the sake of getting your act and life together, is because they care about you more than you care about yourself. And they want you to do right, because they would hate to see your end and demise to be that you are judged on the left side and rather obtain righteousness on the right side. Do not let the affairs of this life, because it's just a vapor at any time anyone is going like this, be greater than what you are required to do in here. Each and every one of us, 90%, not almost 99% of the choices we make fall on us. We make the choices that we make. You know what's not often practiced? Being calculated in what we do. The risks that we take. The end result of everything that we put our hands to do. And in a sense, that's a lack of faith. Because we only work towards our comfortability if we don't see the end result of what could be, and working in uncomfortability. Leaning on one another is a strength. You don't have strength by yourself. You don't. I have never met a person with 2 or 3 jobs and is happy. So stop acting like you're happy. I understand and know for a fact that the curse was to Adam to till the ground forever. But there was a man who died for that and liberated you and gave you opportunity to maneuver around that curse and the many other curses that's listed in this Bible. The curses are to acknowledge that if you don't follow the liberation that he walked you through, they will define you. Not to believe that they still exist, because he liberated you from it. Haggai 1 and 6 only applies to somebody who believes that they're in Haggai 1 and 6 and puts them in positions of Haggai 1 and 6. Was Daniel in Haggai 1 and 6? Was Ezekiel Haggai 1 and 6? Yes or no? Or did they put themselves in position of obtaining much more than what would define the people as a whole, and then put everybody else on around them? You know what Haggai 1 and 6 is?
Huh? Well, the old stuff was
Every decision that you make before you get riled up or feel some type of way about each and every predicament that all of you guys suffer from, all of us that we suffer from, consider your footsteps and you making a decision moving forward. And how you put yourself in that position in the first place. Before you get mad at the world, get mad at yourself. Because you put yourself in that position that you're in. Why complain about a position you put yourself in? I'm not speaking to situations that are out of your control. I'm speaking to situations that are in your control. That you didn't think ahead of time because you was thinking in the present. You know why at times better is the end of a thing? Because when you remove yourself from the situation that was constantly putting you in a bad state and liberate yourself from it, it teaches you not to put yourself in that predicament again and tell somebody else. So sometimes the end of a thing, or all the time, the end of a thing is necessary to be an observational experience that you pass on to somebody else. That's why you're required to lean on one another, whether it be financially, spiritually, mentally, or emotionally. You are to put on for one another. Selflessness is salvation. And you make it difficult when you keep going against the grain. When God commanded you to be selfless, because he did it. So now, let's go to Isaiah 47, verse 10.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 10. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth it. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee.
Stop. Who had the same sentiments? Remember the PowerPoint. Who had the same sentiments, y'all? Sha'an gave the answer earlier. Don't say it again. Meyer aloud.
Tyree and Zion.
Remember Tyree and Sidon? Go ahead. Remember, it's the same. Just want y'all to follow the storyline of. Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
And thou hast said in thine heart, I am, and none else beside me.
You know why Ecclesiastes is there? There's no new thing under the sun. I feel like particularly this nation right here, they never change. Never change. When they're at the top, the pinnacle, and destroying us, prideful and boast. Now, granted, the deceived and deceiver are Christ, ultimately. And the left and right hand is his. However, you see the same sentiments repeatedly after over and over again with this nation. Go ahead.
Verse 11. Therefore shall evil come upon thee. Thou shalt know from whence it riseth.
Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. Go ahead. Say it again.
Thou shalt not know from whence it riseth.
So now, therefore shall evil come upon thee. Give me some examples of evil coming upon this nation. Not what it's institutionalizing. That's an example. So Sha'an got one. Not institutionalizing what it's trying to put inside the system, but what's coming against this nation. The opioid crisis. Sha'an got one. Go ahead.
Debasement of the dollar.
The falling of the dollar. Go ahead. Who else?
Deficit in reproduction rates for them.
Okay.
COVID.
Diseases.
Okay.
But they're all man-made, mostly man-made.
Yep.
LGBT community.
Nope. That's what they're. That's them. That's them. So I kind of don't count against them because that's what they want to do. Food shortages, government assistance will stop.
Oh, the natural disasters hitting us.
That's a good one. Kyle said natural disasters, food shortages, okay. Government assistance will stop, okay.
Other countries, like their military might.
It's getting warmer. So now, they gave all answers in bundle wide as well. Keep going, Brock. After, therefore shall evil come upon thee, there's a semicolon. Go ahead, Brock.
Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know.
No. Read verse 11 from the top, please.
Therefore shall evil come upon thee,
Yep.
thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief shall fall upon thee.
Mischief would be trouble. Go ahead.
Thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know.
What precept?
1 Thessalonians 5:3.
Read it.
1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape.
So now y'all see the sentiments of this nation, their mentality, and them thinking they cannot be touched. Sudden destruction is financially stripping them from their worth, committing acts of war against America, even though America has been attempting to police the whole world. Its army pretty much is crumbling and willing to take anybody back and almost forcing people back into deployment. Not to mention they have he/hers on the front lines. You see the army is finished. This country's finished. And to add testament to that, I have Apayak. I'm going to send you another article to speak to the trouble that America is in at this current time.
You also have government officials that are destroying each other.
Absolutely.
So like that's the same thing.
A house divided cannot stand.
Yeah, it's being divided all throughout. Lies are being exposed.
I'm going to read Biden's destruct. So America is known for throwing sanctions on other countries. Can anybody tell me in this room, or you can exit the ad out? Can anybody tell me in the chat or in the room what that does for America when they throw sanctions on another country?
What it does for other country, or what it does
What it does for America and other country? Yes.
So it destroys and makes other countries more vengeful against America.
Throwing a sanction on another country is an act of war. But you would think it would affect Russia, right? Let me read some.
We're just going back in a different form.
I'm going to read a little bit of it, right? It says, specifically, the policies of financially isolating Russia are creating a bifurcated world that the United States will no longer dominate. Remember, because the dollar is supposed to be the U.S. world currency, supposed to be the world currency, right? In the process, he's ensuring, so Biden, he's ensuring that the U.S. dollar will no longer reign as a world's reserve currency, which is going to lead to a collapse of our economy when countries stop buying our debt. You know, we get loaned under countries, they buy our debt back, even though we pay as well with taxpayer money. U.S.-led international sanctions on Russia have begun to erode the dollar's decade-old dominance of international oil trade as most deals with India. Russia's top outlet for seaborne crude have been settled in other currencies. Remember, BRICS nations are coming up with their own currency, and there's different forms of currency being cycled around the world to pay for oils and commodities. You guys know where oil comes from?
Middle East.
What country?
Russia.
Saudi Arabia. And where else? India. Ranked as a third largest importer of oil globally, India begun procuring the majority of its oil from Russia, which emerged as its top supplier after European nations rejected Moscow's oil in response to its invasion of Ukraine that started in February last year. So there was a point where Russia's selling point of a barrel of oil to America was $80. That's expensive. Very expensive. So now when they do the sanctions on Russia, okay, we'll offer them cheaper. It's like you cutting the plug off and hitting the connect directly. And I'll use a reference to snowfall. You get rid of the middleman who's supplying you and just get straight to the Colombian and buy the kilograms off the individual. And that's what eventually happens. That's an act of war. If I get rid of the supplier who's charging me 12, instead of just going to the individual, I don't have to pay interest on top of what I'm already distributing. It makes sense? I can't believe I gotta put it that way for y'all to get it. Y'all off.
No, I got it.
Nah,
Y'all
y'all wicked.
It's
Y'all wicked.
building up.
That's the only way I can get y'all to get it, because y'all wicked.
It's building up.
you brought it up.
That's wicked. So now, the reason why I'm bringing that up predominantly is because what's been happening over the past couple of months and years is countries that was once allied with America have been having secret meetings with the BRICS nations. Y'all know what the BRICS nations consist of, right? With Russia, China, India, Brazil, and South Africa. What they've been doing, other countries have been secretly meeting with these nations to discuss terms with trading, imports, exports, and going about buying power and selling power through their own form of currencies with one another, not using and moving away towards the dollar. So you understand, right? So now, go ahead, Brock.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 12. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit. If so be thou mayest prevail.
And it has been failing them for a very, very, very long time, and being even more so destructive to the point of where, as watchmen, it is our ability and duty to watch over the things and be mindful of what we intake and pieces of information we share that could be valuable to one another. As much as we are historians and students of, again, the past, we must be players of this present so we know how to move in our future. Y'all understand me? So now, I'm going to share something else. Abayat. If you guys aren't familiar with the thousands of layoffs that's been happening, first of all, can anybody tell me why layoffs happen? Chat, could y'all tell me why layoffs happen?
It's because the company's not making enough money, so they have to let people go.
We get everything from everybody else. We get everything from everybody else. So when they get cut off, we get cut off.
Look at it differently. Y'all gave two, and then, okay, y'all not wrong, but in this particular instance, remember, keep in mind the present time, the destruction of Babylon, and grab the setting of we're in a high volatile interest rate. Interest rates are almost hitting all-time highs. We have not seen anything like this up until about a decade ago, even longer, right? Bankruptcies are at an all-time high. And atrocities are pretty much everywhere. So why would companies lay off thousands of workers?
The need has
To
gone down.
save money.
Louder.
To save money.
To save money.
I said budget cuts and inflation.
Rising rates, yep. You guys are all correct. But the biggest takeaway is to save money. Because they're preparing for what would be or what is a recession. And you don't want that term under your presidency. So they're not going to come out and publicly say it, but they're going to beat around the bush and say that we're in a recession. So in recessions, you have job cuts, layoffs by the thousands. Amazon layoffs. I think I read an article not too long ago that Amazon don't really do 2-day delivery like that. FedEx is doing layoffs. FedEx canceled 7-day deliveries starting next week, I believe.
19th.
The 19th?
19th.
That's a Sunday, right?
This past Sunday was the last Sunday we worked on.
Yeah, that's a Sunday.
So the last Sunday, yesterday, was the last time you got to work 7-day deliveries with FedEx. And I'm pretty sure they're going to shut down Saturdays, and only Saturdays are open around peak seasons. And peak season predominantly towards the later end of the year.
Heard that in the meeting.
Oh my goodness, that whole list here.
Read the list, bro.
That's facts.
Twitter layoffs 10% of their workforce. Twilio lays off 17% of their workforce.
And these are individuals, companies that have hundreds of thousands of employees. To 10,000 to 5,000 employees, right? Go ahead.
Disney lays off 3%. Zoom lays off 15%.
Why would
PayPal-
Zoom have employees? What they be doing on Zoom?
PayPal lays off 7%. Yankee Candle lays off 13%. Spotify lays off 6%. Google lays off 6%. Amazon lays off 1.2%. DirecTV lays off 5 to 6%.
1% is a lot in Amazon because I just read they let off like 10,000 of workers. Go ahead.
In our terminal alone, they shut down 3 belts just to save money, and they turned. Now we only have for the sorters. We only have 30 full timers out of 200 sorters altogether.
I know in my building, they're trying to. In my building, what they're doing is they're trying to bring the building capacity down to 60 people because it's at 90 something right now. And they thought about putting the truckers who back in the mail to the back in the trailers to the warehouse, laying them off for like 3 months.
And then they send sorters home early.
So they send sorters home early, and the coordinators inside of the facility that make sure the lines are straight, the trucks are maintenance, yada yada, over the contractors, pretty much the overseer of the contractors. They have them on 4 days, I think, and they cap them at about 22 to 26 hours.
That's just FedEx.
And that's just FedEx.
There's a team for every app. Every major app.
What the fuck? What is Snapchat?
SoundCloud.
So you have thousands of layoffs. Remember Walmart, before all these mass layoffs happened, years ago, Walmart was laying off thousands of workers. Remember that?
Sam's Club was closing down all of that.
So they was ahead of everybody in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that happening. With the IQ exposure. And then these particular times, right? In order to comfort the losses that people would have received or what happens with layoffs, what do they resort to as far as suppressing pain?
Opioids.
Opioids. What else? One more. Marijuana. What's the last one?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. Apiak, I'm going to send you one last thing. Not one last thing. I'm going to send you something.
Yo, that's
Let me help y'all out.
If you get what he's doing, right? He just indirectly gave the Hegelian dialectic. Because we're talking about the problems. He just asked for the reaction. And now we think that that's the solution. That's why, like, people are being laid off. So how will they react? He asked the question, marijuana, opioids, alcohol. And then we think that that's a solution. And then that's what's allowing more of this nation to further crumble more. And we're discussing Isaiah chapter 47, which is the destruction and the downfall of this nation. To paint the picture that he's trying to portray. It makes sense. Hey,
All that stuff.
Zoom in.
It leads to homelessness.
right.
Absolutely, but they fund homelessness. But how much? Speaking of that, homelessness, right? Did you know interest rates are so high that the cost of shelter has gone up even higher? Very high. And it take a long time for it to go down. The interest report came out for January, I believe 6.4%. They're expecting it to come under 6%. I don't believe that. I believe it'll probably fly in at 6.2% or 6.3%. But Apea, could you please? What's that? Wayfair. I sent you the article. So I was waiting for somebody to say alcohol, and Kyle said alcohol. Did y'all know that alcohol through fermentation, it air odors or airs, like as it airs out, it creates a fungus through fermentation. Mother, Satan be. I'm gonna just read the article.
It does it in your body. That's why you get bloated.
If it does that into your body, then what do you think if it even inhaling it?
Yeah.
So what do you think it does to your body?
That's how you make
So Satan is messing with the article on my phone too. I can't even pull the article up now. You see? So basically, this article is speaking to whiskey fungus by Jack Daniels. How much y'all drink Jack Daniels? That's crazy. That's bottom tier liquor. That's crazy.
Yo,
So Jack, nah, bro. Nah. So Jack Daniels and many other brown liquors. Because remember, Jack Daniels and other companies, keep in mind, a lot of these companies are hedge funded. Even if they have different brands, a lot of their fermentation is the same. The funk, all praises. Hurry up, scroll down before they try to make you pay. You saw wicked, bro. Let me see if I can fresh the page for myself. Listen, Tennessee residents who live close to Jack Daniels distilleries are trying to stop the company from building more facilities as whiskey fungus overtakes surrounding towns. And the fungus is just black across the crib. See, the fungus, Bodonia camnaecensis, grows on liquor that evaporates during the aging process, also known as the angel share. It appears to stick to just about anything, including houses, cars, road signs, trees, and patio furniture. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this is because alcohol, predominantly the browning of it and its fermentation, it's not just Jack Daniels, it's wines as well. It causes that same like manner. And if it does that inside of you, it builds something inside of you called candida. Y'all know what candida is? And the overgrowth of that, candida is yeast. Which is going to segue into what I was telling y'all in the beginning of the class, the PowerPoint of me showing y'all the next class. But candida, too much of candida causes what? Or yeast causes what? Cancer, respiratory failure, illness, and it weakens and destroys your immune system. And candida isn't just in alcohol. It's found in your foods as well and goes under many names, which we'll discuss in the next class that I have for you guys.
It's a secret attack too, because what if they just made the NBA? Hennessy, the spirit of the NBA.
Absolutely.
They're pushing that OD hard.
Guess who owns NBA? I mean, the Hennessy. The Gucci owner. The owner of Gucci owns Hennessy, Gucci, and many other shares and companies, all while owning parts of what we consume in on a daily that's destroying us. So now in the sentiments of destruction of America and what's happening in Isaiah 47, we can clearly see that this nation has been on the downside for a very long time. And this should be everybody's opportunity to do right and wake the hell up. Invest in you guys' present and future and stop conflicting your walk with that old man of the past. Throw him in the trash and do more for yourself. And work past the point of your comfortability, or else you will never grow in this. This walk isn't for your comfortability and at your comfortability and pace of what you want to do in this. This God, the man who died for you wasn't comfortable when he was put on that cross. At what point in your individual lives, in our individual lives, would you think that how we move forward in this was going to be comfortable? The only sort or resorts of you finding comfortability is what?
It was truth.
I'm looking for
deliverance.
I'm looking for something.
Brotherhood.
Nope.
The promise.
Brotherhood second. What's first?
The promise.
Casting your what?
The burden.
Casting your cares into the Most High. And then through that, he maneuvers, and all your burdens are lighter. It's not that they go away. You're still lifting them, but you have somebody else assisting you and lifting and carrying that load. All in the while, and individuals who are like-minded amongst you, that person is also helping you lift that load. The solutions to your problems are right around you, are right around each and every one of you. You just don't look toward them. Or do you give much attention to them? Because you keep trying to muscle every problem you have by yourself. And God didn't create you for that. I have to remind y'all there was 12 men amongst them. Even if he went to that cross by himself, there was 12 men. What does 12 mean in Hebrew?
YASHARAHLA.
Y'all know what 12 means in Hebrew? Y'all don't know what 12 means in Hebrew. Chat, y'all know what 12 means in Hebrew? Oh, the academy gonna tear y'all up. That test gonna tear y'all up. Brock, say it again.
YASHARAHLA.
What does that name mean?
Prince of the power.
He is a prince of the power.
And peace. There's peace to know that your lineage was peace. And in your creating, and you being the created, your creator is the authenticator of peace. And he gave you that in increments by casting your cares and asking him to guide you through the mechanics of captivity. And in that, he sent individuals amongst you who are like-minded to be that representation and guide of where you need to go and follow concerning orders and instructions. Being like-minded is an advantage, especially when you listen, because it could get you very far if you understand the simplicity of how Christ walked on this earth. All y'all need to study Christ's life a lot more, because he was extremely selfless and sacrificed almost every day in his walk to make sure that what he did and the mission that he did was fulfilled. We must all imitate and walk after the affairs of how Christ enacted his life. So y'all understand. Y'all understand that? Go ahead, Brock. Keep reading on Isaiah 47.
Isaiah chapter 47 and verse 12. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so be, thou mayest prevail.
Obviously, that's not happening, because through their profiting, they have failed to where they have a doomsday clock, which would be the image to this class, because that's time's almost up.
How are you gonna prevail knowing that you coming to an end?
Prevailing and failing. You're prevailing in your failures. You're speeding up the process. Go ahead.
Verse 13. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels.
Weary. Go ahead.
Let now the astrologers.
The astrologers, you got, that's another term of sorcery that I hate with a very strong hatred. Astrology. The sun and the moon isn't going to tell you the destruction on the left side, of course, because we use the sun and the moon, predominantly the moon, as a time of seasons to delegate our high holy days, the specific times of what's to come, the red moons, so on and so forth. But these goofballs use the stars and the moon and the sun to justify their character development. That's so goofy. That is a lack of accountability within oneself. Was they stoned back then for that?
So was it what?
I believe people were stoned back then for that.
Yeah.
That I'll make sure that's in the kingdom.
That's the form of
I'll
it.
make sure that's in the kingdom. But believing and relying on astrology to justify any type of behavior. First of all, you're 36. If you don't study the sun and the moon and its benefits and the cons to the moon predominantly, as you sit there and charge a rock and sit and believe that you're charging a rock, that's actually negatively charging the rock to induce psychotic behaviors within your household. And you're bringing demons in the crib, bro. If y'all didn't know that, study the effects of the moon. Study the effects of the sun. You notice you're asleep when the moon is out, and you're awake and in good morning, in good moods when the sun is up. Do y'all not feel that when the sun go up and y'all look at the sunset? Do y'all not feel happy? Like y'all feel like y'all got mad energy? When the sun out, nobody has a bad day. When the sun is out. When the moon is out, what happens predominantly? Crime rate increases, violence at all-time high, and everything. At what point did your brain go off and be like, you know what? If I charge a rock and the moon, let it charge, retrogrades, the energy, the vibes, I think I'm a...
Even on the left side, they blame it on the moon, like the full moon.
Even on the left side, they blame it on the moon.
People acting crazy. They drive crazy watching the full moon.
It must be a full moon. It must be Mercury retro. I can't wait till God. I can't wait till he returns. But using astrology as a way to steer away from God, the greatest creation that God has ever created was you. Why would you give life to things that are lifeless? And in his perfection of what would be the rest day, he created you and gave you knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of all things. He rested after he created you. Why would you give the power he gave you into something as lifeless as a rock, as wood, as stone? There are scriptures where he specifically speaks towards the efforts in you creating something lifeless could have been put to good use of practicing your faith towards him. Why would you give it to something lifeless? It's more than just, you got to understand, Christ's sentiments towards, and the Father's sentiments towards idol worship is deeper than what you think. You took the time out to perfect something that's so lifeless instead of giving honor and praise to the man who created you and the things that you're worshiping. Concerning on the right side, when we look at flowers, when we look at the lily, how beautiful it is, the fact that a snowflake never duplicates itself, we give admonish and all praise to the Father and how beautiful snowflakes can be. There is not one duplicate of a snowflake. Anybody can do that. Not one duplicate of a snowflake. The lily itself, beautiful. The creation itself, plants, all of that, agriculture, and how it serves in the season, beautiful. We give honor and glory to the Most High. You look at a rock, stare at it and be like, and rocks, don't get me wrong, they have benefits. Some of them have benefits. But to the point of where you're worshiping it and believing, past the point of God gave this rock or anything that I see that has power, ability to even grant access to be accessible to my personal life. So I'm gonna give God glory first rather than just to create it. You gave that much power to the rock to where God, in his fury and anger, destroyed us. It's the workmanship of what you've done that pissed him off the most. Remember, it's the progress, not the end result. So, verse 13.
Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers,
UFOs or identified flying, the Lord's ships coming in and out of this terminal space and time continuum. And you got to make a space force for that. Stop boxing with something you can't even. Go ahead, Brock.
The monthly
The
prognosticators.
monthly prognosticators, well, they have a life prognosticator, and that would be the doomsday clock. 3 minutes to 2 minutes to 1 minute.
That's what a prognosticator is? Like
Prognosticator is
like
an
someone-
individual who, I'll be honest as well, pull up the definition. A prognosticator is somebody who measures the time. So in another case, it would be the watchman in their end.
Remember, they
Stock
had
market news coverage, we got news coverage, we have this going on, that.
Remember, they had that back in Nebuchadnezzar's time, just as they do in this.
As well. So this remember, the comparison is to the Babylonians, Chaldeans up until now. It's just a daughter.
Right.
What's a prognosticator? A person who foresees or prophesies prophesies a future event. And in prophesying their future event, you know how they do that? They create the future event. One example, making creating the weather.
Right.
Making creating weather and making creating situations to where they create the problem and they create the solutions for it. They purposely make problems so that they can be the solutions to a lot of them. And we fall to them a lot of the times. Go ahead, Brock.
Stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon
So
thee.
stand up and save yourself from the things that shall come upon thee. Go ahead.
Behold, they shall be as stubble.
As stubble. Remember the rock that smoked, that image in Daniel. See the same repetitive thing going on and on and on. And keep in mind, that statue is of what? Gold, silver, bronze, clay, mire. So it's one statue. Is this not? It's not Babylonia. This particular Babylon, a melting pot. This nation, a melting pot. Y'all see the reference? Go ahead.
Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it.
Go ahead.
Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants.
Who's thy merchants of old, y'all? Who's the original merchants? The first merchants, who was their first merchants? Huh? No.
Us?
If y'all follow, say it loud.
Us?
Oh, first
We
time.
was. If y'all follow, remember the same storyline of Tyree Zidon. We was their first merchants. And what was being traded? Loud.
Silk?
What else?
Man.
Say it again.
Man.
Souls of men and men, women and children, for sugars and spices. Read it from the top again, bro.
Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter.
Back to their original quarters. Go ahead.
None shall save thee.
Remember in Ezekiel when it was hissing at Tyre and Zidon being destroyed. Y'all know what that is? Hissing. Turning their head side and fro, like turn back at the destruction of Tyre and Zidon. Revelation 18 and verse 11.
Revelation chapter 18 and verse 11. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. The merchandise of gold, of silver, and precious stones, and of pearls, and fine linen, and purple, and silk, and scarlet, and thyine wood, and all manner vessels of ivory, and all manner vessels of most precious wood, and of brass, and iron and marble, and cinnamon, and odors, and ointments, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and beasts, and sheep, and horses, and chariots, and slaves, and souls of men.
That was traded then and now. and this is what they're paying for. So the conversation has been shifted to originally Israel through their disobedience, and then right back to Esau. First, it started with Esau. Then in verse 7, gave a quick turnaround to Israel's disobedience, and also to Esau, and then redirect the conversation right back to Esau and the destruction. And then the destruction, and them being soon to be destroyed, the merchants that'll be round about thee will hiss at the destruction and say and have the same sentiments that they had against Tyre and Sidon when they were destroyed. Destruction in this particular, or destruction to this country is coming very soon. Very, very soon. And now we have to stay prepared and stay on our pivot on doing right by one another. Stepping up in attendance is pivotal in these times. Very pivotal in terms of communication, not just physical appearance, communication, participation. Don't make me run down the Asians like Dr. Umar be doing. But most importantly, get your spirits and gird yourselves up. Put on the whole body of Christ and armor of Christ, because we are in some very, very, very dangerous times. And you wouldn't necessarily be attentive to the dangerous times because you're protected. Do not take advantage of the helm of protection that the Most High has put over you before he removes it from you and you realize that you're in grave danger. If you've been slothful and slacking, step up. Get your affairs in order together and move calculated. Get a planner if you have to. Write the things down that you need to do to get your life situated properly. As much as you render unto Caesar what's due unto Caesar, make that same effort 7 times greater unto the Lord, because he sees that. The effort that you put into making sure you wake up and go to the job every morning, that energy has to be reciprocated even greater towards Christ, because he sees that. Do not put the affairs of your life before Christ. I'm telling you, you'll lose every time, and you will stay stuck in an internal loop. You are not getting a greater edge thinking that I'm gonna miss class a little bit, I'm gonna miss camp a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna sacrifice a little. I promise you, Christ does not work like that. He will put you in an eternal loop thinking that you're gaining something you're not. When you think you got something in one area, the other area that you should have cleaned up a long time ago, and as well as laboring amongst your brethren and balancing out your work and workmanship within here, will explode. Then you got another problem to deal with. Get your affairs in all of us. This is a mantra to each and every one of us in this room and everybody in the classroom. Get your affairs in life in order. Step your attendance up, and as well as execution. Your execution matters most in what you do as far as attendance. Don't be here and your execution is slothful. Your absence will be very much appreciated in your poor execution. Put in more sacrifice for the greater good, because we all want to get out of here.
Yeah.
It's time to act like it. We have curriculums. We have the academy. We have the school's academy. We have the school's curriculum. Everybody has free time to do what they want to do. Utilize it for the greater good of what needs to be done, not what you want to do, because God is watching you. Brock, close this out.
This is Psalm chapter 126. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then they said among the heathen, the Lord had done great things for them. The Lord had done great things for us, whereof we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. In the name of Yahweh, by Hashem YHWH, the Wadah from Yad, Amen.
Amen.
Abadjum Shabbat. Abadjum. Barak.
How about Shimmy outside rocked up?
How about Shimmy Al-Shab Thumb?
Ayo, Shalom.